Alright, in this video we're going to be talking about two-way tables. Two-way tables has two things you're comparing against two different classifications. So here we're comparing full-time versus part-time employees and whether or not they've been to a doctor in the last year. It says in a survey of 135 adults, 85 were employed full-time and the remainder were employed part-time. Of those employed full-time, 70 had been to a doctor in the last year, and of those employed part-time, 25 had been to a doctor in the last year. Use this information to complete the two-way table. Alright, so we can fill out some of this information. For the first slot here, it said 70 had been to a doctor who were full-time employees. We can figure that out. And then it said of those that were part-time, 25 had been to a doctor. So here in this slot here, we know that's going to be 25. Now, we know that it said in the very first sentence, 85 were employed full-time. So we can kind of have a total running out here just to keep track of our numbers. That means the ones that answered no and not been, they'd have to add up to 15. 70 plus 15 gives us the 85. We also know that there were 135 of all the adults surveyed, whether they were full-time, part-time, been to a doctor or not, 135. For 85 to add up to 135, we have to add 50 here. 85 plus 50 gives us 135, and therefore adding across here, 25 plus another 25 would equal 50. All right, so the numbers here are 70, 15, 25, and 25, and that completes this two-way table. Let's look at another one here where the two-way table is made for us. It says the two-way table shows the results for the number of people who live in the city or the suburbs who own a cat or a dog. All right, so whether you live city, suburbs, you own a cat or a dog. Of the people polled, how many live in the suburbs? Questions like this, you just have to focus on one classification and then add across the 6 plus 18. 6 plus 12 will add up to 18. To answer the question, 18 people lived in the suburbs. All right, and this last one here says the two-way table shows the number of people whose hobbies are reading or shoveling or solving puzzles, who either ride a motorcycle or don't ride a motorcycle. Among those whose hobby is reading, what's the relative frequency of not riding a motorcycle? Express your answer as a decimal, round to the nearest hundredth if necessary. So this idea of relative frequency, it tells you through a decimal or a percentage how often something occurs. So among those whose hobby is reading, so we are just focused on the reading. Those that said reading, based on this question here. What's the relative frequency of not riding a motorcycle? Well, let's get the total first for reading. There are 12 total readers, and those that don't ride a motorcycle are 5. So here's what we do. We take 5 and we divide it by that 12, and the relative frequency is 0.42. So if your hobby is reading, and there is a 42% chance or 0.42 chance of that person not riding a motorcycle based on this survey. So it's a quick example of relative frequency.